think I'm live. And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Today we're doing a Prime Minister's response that isn't about Brexit for once. I know what you're thinking. What a load of bullshit. Surely it's about Brexit. No. I mean the first question is, and certainly Ian Blackford, the SNP's questions are, because he's quite special. So much so there's a fair amount of controversy around something he actually says in Parliament. And we're going to get to that. Oh, excuse me. Stupid 6 AM start. Good evening, chat. Good evening, Goats and Dogs, Simius, Serene, Davy, hello Anne, Daniel, and Way to Twilight. And Stargazer, hello. I don't really want to waste too much time on this, so I think we should just dive right into this. Yeah, Blackford is uber lols. Do not spoil it. There are quite a number of interventions from this man tonight, actually, today. Earlier today, but now tonight. So that's quite good. Because it makes them look even more childish, which was noted on Twitter. The sheer number of times this idiot... Oh, that face. It looks like he's about to gurn. Hands off his papers. He doesn't molest the papers anywhere near as much as Ian Blackford.
Questions to the Prime Minister, Mr. Philip Dunn.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I first of all join you and the whole House in commending Sammy Woodhouse?
Sammy Woodhouse, for those that don't know, is a victim of a gang rape when she was 15. She's now in her late 20s. She was invited to Parliament today as a guest. She's up in the... I think she's actually up in the Peanut Gallery observing today's proceedings. Her particular incident and what took place is rather unique, because it was a Muslim grooming gang that did it, but Rotherham Council saw fit to see that the disabled twat that did it to her, that got her pregnant when she was 15 to the point where she had a child, has some visitation rights and a say in that child's future. Rotherham Council should have been defending her. Let's face it, if given a choice, who are you going to stand up for rights-wise? I don't know any MRAs that would stand up for this idiot. I don't know anyone anywhere that would stand up for this idiot, for that matter. But, and I don't mean this idiot, Theresa May, I mean the idiot who raped her, although some of her policies, just saying. I wouldn't even rape you, though. But this man is clearly not worth your time. But Rotherham City... Rotherham Town? Rotherham City? Is it a town or a city? Doesn't matter. Rotherham Council saw fit to allow him, and social services of course, saw fit to allow him visitation rights and say on his future. That is a betrayal of her and of course the kid. Because eventually that kid's going to find out about how he was born, which I think is the most dysfunctional, the most disturbing conversation that will lead to a very... I don't know, it's going to be quite... I would love to be a fly on the wall, actually, in that particular spoiler, when it has to be explained to him that he is only here because a man violated his mother. It's a town. Thank you for clearing that up for me. I'm assuming it doesn't have a cathedral. As far as I'm concerned, just because this man is half that kid doesn't make him a father. Father's the man that raised you. And we're lucky that this man didn't raise him. We're lucky, because I think this kid would have turned out to be just like him. And one can hope that by highlighting this experience, because more people should come forward, the only issue is, while we're talking about it from the perspective of victims of sexual violence, we're not talking about it from the perspective of why it is being committed. Ruffle puff. Yes. Anyway, Sammy Woodhouse is in the Peanuts Gallery today as a guest. And just before P&Q started, the speaker announced her being there. Naturally, she, Jeremy Corbyn, and other politicians will undoubtedly want to use it to highlight the need to deal with sexual violence and other such crimes.
It is, I think we all recognise across this House that for too long it has been difficult for rape victims to speak out.
Or when they have, they've been silenced because racism.
I hope that now, following her example, others will recognise that they will be heard and that proper action will be taken.
Well, let's now do that one thing that the member in the House of Lords asked. Let's talk about Islam. I can see that getting this stream demonetised.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
I just, before anyone asks questions, I know I've paused a few times. We both know that the remainder of her day is her curled up in a corner crying into a pillow. Because she knows in 5 days' time now, she's fucked. Especially if, and no, actually, you know what, no. It's not, because it's Brexit. We're not going to talk about that. Let's get to the... Yeah.
Mr. Philip Dunn.
Speaker, could I echo yours and the Prime Minister's comments in respect of Sammy Woodhouse from these backbenches? Does my right honourable friend believe that today's announcement of the UK life sciences sector's significant investment to work alongside the NHS using genomics and AI to help diagnose major diseases early shows that world-class life sciences companies, such as Agilent in my constituency, will continue to invest in the UK to help the NHS improve patient outcomes post-Brexit?
Right, so this is an announcement earlier today, and it comes from Pharmafield, where the, what's it called? IQVIA. Yeah, I don't know what that actually stands for, I really should know. They're investing, there's 2 multi-million-pound investments as part of this government's life science sector deal. One of them is an investment package totaling 48 million in the economy, which would include 2 key investments, 24 million in a new prime site in the north of England and 20 for a collaboration with Genomics England. There are other investments that have been made and mentioned from other companies, but this is the first one I easily found. Yeah, I started early. I was bored, okay? I was just really, really bored. There are other companies that have been investing as well in vaccine manufacturing, the new innovation centre for that. So it's quite exciting. However, as promising as this is, because obviously they haven't been deterred by the goings-on in Brexit, and I will talk about certainly the Attorney General's legal advice tomorrow. I don't... Actually, no, must stop oneself. Don't talk about it. No. As promising as it is that people are investing money, it's worth noting that it doesn't offset anything yet. It's just a promising start that will hopefully encourage more to consider investing. Yeah, that's about it, really.
The Prime Minister.
Can I say to my honourable friend that this investment is indeed a significant one. £1 billion investment. It will deliver a state-of-the-art research and development facility in the UK. It will support 650 jobs. It's absolutely right that this does show the opportunities available to the UK post-Brexit. It also shows the advantage of our industrial strategy, with AI right at the heart of that, and recognising the importance of AI in the health sector in the future. This is a very significant investment. It will support jobs in the UK. It will support other employment in the UK and our economy in the future.
If everyone did a shot for every order, I think most would be half cut by the end of this, or by the time we finish what we intend to cover tonight.
Mr. Jeremy Corbyn.
It's very
Thank you,
quiet in
Mr.
Parliament.
Speaker, and I join yourself and the Prime Minister in welcoming Sammy Woodhouse to Parliament today, and it's a typical act of your generosity to refer to her in the gallery today so that others may be emboldened to deal with the horrors of the rape crisis that we've...
Rape crisis. I don't know if I want to call it that. I want to call it Muslim grooming gangs. I really do. By the way, I hadn't actually noticed he was wearing a purple badge, which I believe says Crowns and Colitis? I have no idea what that is. It must be something so important.
face. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to express our sympathies to the family of Luke Griffin from Merseyside, who was killed in Kabul last week alongside 5 fellow G4S workers who were Afghan nationals. Luke had previously served in the 16th Regiment of the Royal Artillery.
Oh, is it Crohn's? Ah, thank you for correcting me. I know someone is going to give me shit for not noticing that. To me, for this resolution, it looks like a W. But I could, obviously, must be right, because that makes more sense than crowns. How is crown a disease? Unless you're allergic to it.
Mr. Speaker, while we debate the critical issue of Brexit, we must not neglect the crisis facing millions of people across our country. Last week,
we haven't even got into his first question yet, and crisis has already cropped up. Do we need to cross that off the bingo chart?
I wrote to the Prime Minister about the scathing report of the UN Special Rapporteur on this government's brutal policies towards the poorest in Britain. I
did cover this. The Alston, I believe his name was Alston, wrote a report about poverty in this country and housing and such. I just want to say, and it seems to be a point for him, but in this case, I don't. It bugged me. It bugged me a bit because I'm not against the idea of an outside source reviewing us and telling us how it is. For all I know, Alston could be right on a number of issues, of course. It might have a laxative effect, yes. It would certainly explain the lady on the left there. But why is Jeremy Corbyn holding this report in such stock? Or what does he feel that it holds so much as far as integrity goes that he believes he has a solid point against the Prime Minister? Because there are going to be points later on when it comes to unemployment, when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to destitution. And I don't think the point has as much validity as he thinks it does. And I think we'll certainly get to it later. Maybe I misunderstand. It's possible, and I'm open to being proven wrong. I've been proven wrong in the comments of previous streams. There is no point to Jeremy Corbyn. There is. Human rights is his main thing. It's the one thing I think he has right. But other than that, no.
As of now, I've received no reply from the Prime Minister.
Well, she has been busy crying into that pillow, as I mentioned earlier.
But when the Prime Minister read the report, what shocked her more? Was it the words the UN used, or was it the shocking reality of rising poverty in Britain?
Oh, excuse me. There is an argument that poverty is rising in this country. There is validity to that. But it's the definition of poverty. That's where people get confused, whether it's absolute or relative. I've mentioned this so many times. I might, if I can go and pull them up. Is it here? No, it's here. Right. Let's pull this up. Here we go. So this is from Full Fact. This is the housing costs, relative poverty over the last, well, over 20 years now. Okay. Absolute poverty has fallen slightly, but obviously this is relative, so we go to absolute. It has fallen. There's no denying that. But it's that definition of more people in that poverty, but that's only because the population's gone up. So while the numbers have gone down, because the population's gone up, the actual number hasn't changed as much. I thought I'd show that off. Again, though, I might be misunderstanding that entirely, but who knows. But I still maintain, why should we hold so much stock in that report? I have read it, and it was pretty damning. I can certainly understand a number of elements in it. I'm not conservative in this instance. I'm not a wealthy person. I'm certainly the lower bracket. But I understand I understand what poverty actually is, as opposed to this graft concept based on numbers and not taking into account individual circumstance, which I think is really important. It bugs me quite a bit.
Minister.
I say to the right honourable gentleman, and we have been clear, as my right honourable friend, Secretary of State for Work and Pensions has been, that we don't agree with this report, because what we actually see... No, we don't agree with this report. What we actually see in our country today is absolute poverty at record lows.
Which I think I showed a moment ago. The low is definitely record low, but if you account for population rise, it's not at the same time.
More people in work.
I'm just going to also point out, before she says more people in work, you noticed there a few seconds ago there, I might be able to pull it back. Can I pull it back onto it? Yeah, this person here. This, not the coconut, this is Amber Rudd. Amber Rudd, not long ago, had to resign from the cabinet because she lied. And now, because she supports the Prime Minister's Brexit deal, she's back in the cabinet. Because she had no one else. The Prime Minister had literally had no one else but a liar. That's not a good idea. She may be very good at her job. You spaff. Oh, dear God. Let's continue.
More people in work than ever before. Youth unemployment almost...
That's a good point. Benefit sanctions. I've heard about some of these being absolutely brutal. From personal experience, I'm not intentionally being racist, but Saeed Javid, whatever his name is, Home Secretary, he stood in Parliament and actually said people called him a coconut, which was quite funny. In the context, it could be argued to be racist, but I still found it funny. In fact, if he downplayed it, and instead of using it to make a point about racism, I think he could have had I think he could have dealt with it better and made the Labour Party look even more foolish. She need a paper bag on. Right. But the sanctions thing, I have a relative who might get sanctioned, even though they followed every instruction given to them by the DWP or whoever it is that deals with these. And I know about the sanction quotas because they existed when I was last on Job Seekers about 4 years ago. That's not new. Because they sanctioned me once, and I told them that doesn't scare me. Which I thought was funny. What was I going to talk... Oh, fuck it. No, Philip Hammond has no soul.
Halved, wages growing, and that's...
Not true. And, okay, so, yes, unemployment has kind of halved, but not. And wages have grown, but not by as much as this idiot says.
Because of the balanced approach that we take to our economy, a Conservative government delivering for the British people.
Yeah, I'd heard about the mental illness thing. There is a reason, even though I'm on the lower income bracket, I refuse to go near universal credit or any kind of... Because I know I'm entitled to some, but I don't want it. I don't want the hassle. It's the BBC Light programme this day, presented by Lord Moist. Nice. Thank you, Furry.
Mr. Speaker, it could be that she doesn't agree with it because it's an unpalatable truth that's in that report.
If she had time to read it, maybe.
Yes.
The new Work and Pensions Secretary seems to have taken a lesson from her and created a hostile environment for those that are claiming benefits.
Sly dig at Amber Rudd because of her previous experience with the Windrush generation.
Yes.
One of the government's policies that's causing the greatest anxiety and poverty is universal credit.
I know a lot of people on universal credit. Some creators, some not. And the majority of those I've spoken to have had no issues. I know one or two people that have had issues. They were either caught out with the waiting times when it initially was rolled out in the area, and that obviously left them short for a while to the point where they had to get a loan. Wonga being a thing back then. Others having to wait for over a month because of the initial delay to the system. It's a bit of a weird one because I get the idea of universal credit and I understand it. I think I personally like the idea of having one benefit in one place as opposed to 20,000. Well, I know I'm exaggerating on purpose, but the point, you know what the point is. You shouldn't have so many different types of employments. If you can make it simpler and keep it in one place, then you should. The problem that certainly rises without that many different departments in one place is that you run the risk of them not communicating with each other because they're not using the same system, and then when you try and use the same system, the system inevitably crashes. Look at the NHS. Fuck's sake, some of their systems are still on what, Windows 98? I scored 0 on my work capability assessment for ESA. I have cerebral palsy and a bad speech impediment. Went to my GP for a statement. He just shook his head at what happened. Fuck. That's weird. And shit. I'm really sorry to hear that. How the fuck did you score 0? Ah, that really sucks. I'm very sorry. This is obviously another one of those individual cases I can't comment on it really, because it's not a good thing. If true, that is actual, and I'm not saying it to question your integrity. I'm saying because if it is true, then it shows a massive weakness in the capability assessment. I know my mother had to go through those before she died because of she had an injury in her spine, and they were the most embarrassing things she had to go through. And I remember the hassle, the aggro, and them trying to find a way to make it appear as if she could work when she couldn't. They've been giving the children of women who were raped over to the Muslim. Oh, really? Oh dear. Oh, that's not good. And yes, go to Citizens Advice. I would highly recommend that. They are quite handy at what they do. I'm really sorry they forced your people. I'm flabbergasted. I don't like the system if the system is as bad in enforcing it like that as it comes across. I really don't like that. I don't like if they have quotas. I don't like the idea that they have to look for the tiniest little thing to get you into work, especially if you are incapable of it and it is proven to be the case. If you want to work, obviously that's a different matter entirely. But if they're trying to force you into work when you're not capable of it, then I think they're not doing their job very well. Because they're assessing you as capable, but I think they need to then decide, what can somebody do with these conditions? Right, is that work in this area? Is it anywhere nearby? Is it anywhere within, I don't know, this country? No? Okay, then let's just turn that 0 around, shall we? Anyway, I'm not saying you should play the system like that. I don't even know what I was trying to say.
The UN rapporteur, Professor Alston, said it was fast falling into universal discredit.
I think that there are many flaws in how the system's been rolled out. That has naturally caused a stir, and in instances in the chat as well, it is quite clear that individuals have been negatively impacted by it. Yes. However, that should not just because something has I'm going to get shit for this. Much like earlier when I didn't notice Crohn's written on the badge. Just because something doesn't roll out perfectly, like it ever would to begin with, or because something is difficult, like, let's think, something big that's going on now that's remarkably challenging, that many people just want us to quit doing. You shouldn't quit. If it works, if it looks like it could work, if the potential is there for it to work, sometimes you have to take a gamble. And unfortunately, there is always a risk. And the risk is mentioned in the chat with those that have been negatively impacted by it. I don't like the idea of people just sitting back and playing safe, especially when you try and make something better to build on something that is inherently flawed from the offset. I don't think I've said that right. Oh dear. Let's continue before I say something that will put my foot in my mouth.
When will the Prime Minister demonstrate some of her professed concern about burning injustices and halt the rollout of universal credit?
I'm wondering if he's going to play the race card today.
Minister!
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, we've exchanged on this issue of universal credit before. Universal credit... The Shadow Foreign Secretary from a sedentary position says we've not done anything about it. What we have done, as we have been rolling out universal credit, is making changes...
Fuck, those glasses were gay.
...as we have gone through those changes. But actually, I'm afraid that what we saw was a Labour Party that wouldn't support the changes we were making to universal credit.
Yeah, see, this is interesting. I couldn't find anything on the reasonable reasons why they would always vote against universal credit. Now, the only answer then I can draw from that, or conclusion, is that they simply don't like universal credit. Therefore, it doesn't matter if they reform it. It doesn't matter if they offer changes that would actually be beneficial. It doesn't matter. Labour will vote against it because it's universal credit, which I think is petty. If the system is there and there's potential for it to work, which they clearly don't see but they should see, hopefully the moderates in the party do, they should consider the amendments or tabling amendments to improve it.
So we've listened and we've made changes. It's time actually that the Labour Party recognise that the universal credit is ensuring that we see more people in work in this country, that we see absolute poverty at record lows.
And no, I don't think Labour have a better idea. I think they like the system as it was, and I would argue, based on Labour's current economic plans, they would go back to what we used to do. And I'm going to say this now from personal experience, much like those in the chat who have had really bad experience on universal credit, I have had the worst of times in my life on job seekers allowance. And that system didn't try to help me in any conceivable way to get out of that low. All the while me just continuing to apply for jobs and keep going out there, handing out CVs, applying online, being proactive and getting nothing. They did nothing as well. That is a system designed to keep you... It was a system designed to keep you down and hurt you. If you don't know, if you haven't been on job seekers allowance before, or if you have, you know exactly how I feel. It is one of the most depressing existences ever. And most of the people I saw there just blamed everyone else for their failings, which I thought was kind of counterproductive to the whole getting a job. Just get on with shit.
That's it. A system that delivers for people, encourages them into work, a simpler system that's better for those people who need to use it.
I have been an adult for 16 years. Nearly 17 now. Let's see, I've worked in a full-time job for 2.5 years. Now, we'll exclude university, which is 6 years. That reduces, because I worked during then as well. It reduces everything down if we put the 2.5 years on that, because that's what it was. Or a year and a half after, 7.5 years. 7.5? Yeah. No, less, because it was concurrent. It was concurrent. The remaining time I was unemployed. 2 years before uni, and 4 years after. And that was consecutive unemployment. The job centre does not help you. It used to be like that. Apparently it has changed to the point where they now actually have to be proactive. It's just a shame that it took 2 years after I forced myself into self-employment and just decided, fuck it, the system that they begged me to stay on, because apparently the work programme works, the system they begged me to stay on was clearly not working. And the worst part was, I put my faith in education, which is why I went to university. It's why I stayed on for a postgraduate degree. And the first thing the job centre did was tear all my qualifications away, which I felt was the most insulting thing to my integrity. It was insulting. It was patronising. I understood it because some employers would be intimidated by a degree. Are you kidding me? It doesn't matter now, I guess, because I've changed path. But honestly, the system that existed during the time of Labour, that it still existed during the time of Cameron while it was slowly being eroded at, was not helping anyone. It kept people on benefits because it would tell them they were better off on benefits. That is not a life. This is an existence on handouts. And by the way, my existence on handouts being low priority and entitled to fuck all past housing benefit and job seekers meant I lived on £5 a week. That was £5 for everything I could ever need, ever. I lived on that for 4 years. It was hell. I actually understand why some people are drawn to cutting themselves, turning to alcohol, which I couldn't afford anyway, drugs, which I was never interested in. Turns out I'm the complete opposite of somebody who'd want to harm themselves. So thankfully, I just kept on applying for work and getting nowhere. But I won't blame anyone for that ever, because it's not productive. It does no one any favours. I'm only bleating on about this because it pisses me off so much that system existed for as long as it did, and people thought it was a good idea.
Jeremy Corbyn!
She might just care to cast her eyes over the report from the Trussell Trust. And I quote, "If the 5-week wait isn't reduced, the only way to stop even more people being forced into food banks this winter will be to pause all new claims to universal credit." The UN also called for the 5-week wait to be scrapped.
The 5-week crapped. I like that. I'm going to keep that. Did he talk about... Hang on, I have to...
Scrapped. In the coming weeks, universal credit is being rolled out in Anglesey, Blackpool, Milton Keynes.
I may have missed something. Hang on.
5-week wait.
Universal credit is ensuring that we see more people in work in there who need to use it.
Right.
Jeremy
I may have missed something.
She might just care to cast her eyes over the report from the Trussell Trust.
Right, the Trussell Trust. Here we go. I've got this report on my screen somewhere. Which source is it? Oh, there's a lot of sources. Where is it? Trussell Trust. Here we go. Right. So, I've pulled up the summary because I can't be asked to go through the entire thing. This is just 8 pages. Okay, 8 pages as opposed to many more pages. I have linked it below. By all means, look at it. Trussell Trust. Here we go. The key findings: households using food banks face extreme financial vulnerability. I think that is pretty much obvious. Almost half of households reported that incomes were unsteady from week to week or month to month. Well, if you're self-employed, I certainly understand that from experience. Some of my clients don't pay on time. It is quite inconvenient. YouTube is another one. Apparently it doesn't pay on time anymore after last month. We'll see what they do this month, because apparently YouTube pays out on Christmas Day. Well, I'd like to see that happen. Half of households included someone with a disability. Okay. Lone parents and their children constitute the largest number of people receiving help from food banks. That doesn't surprise me. I feel like I need a picture here of Captain Obvious. Oh, hang on. You can't... To the left of the screen in the grey area, just imagine Captain Obvious there, because that's what you need to explain these. Over 78% of households were severely food insecure. Okay, again, not something I'm surprised by. Food bank users experience multiple forms of destitution. 50% have gone without heating for more than 4 days in the last 12 months, and 1 in 5 has slept rough in the last 12 months. There's your Captain Obvious stuff. So, we're going to go down to the conclusion, which is long. But households referred to food banks are extremely vulnerable population. Our findings highlight the depth of poverty, insecurity of incomes, and experiences of food insecurity and material deprivation amongst this group. We have also shown that people overrepresented among food bank users are those with disabilities, lone parents and their children, and single male households. Well, it's nice to see the single males getting a shout out. By the way, and just for a bit of transparency, my family have used a food bank a few times before. I think my mum did twice. My youngest sister, she has once. It's an unfortunate consequence of life, although why my sister did, it was entirely of her own making, I guess. These findings raise questions about the cost of living and whether the current social security system is meeting people's needs. Yes, but in your research, I didn't notice anything mentioned about people's inability to look after their own money, in the sense that they live within their means, and therefore not going on the not going to the lengths of acquiring money that they shouldn't have, because then they end up accruing more debt. I did notice that in your research, so yeah, I'm not trying to poke holes in your data, but I think your data is flawed because there are variables that aren't being accounted for. Okay, so let's go back to PMQs now.
And I quote, "If the 5-week wait isn't reduced, the only way to stop even more people being forced into food banks this winter will be to pause all new claims to universal credit." The UN also called for the 5-week wait to be scrapped. In the coming weeks, universal credit is being rolled out in Anglesey, Blackpool, Milton Keynes, parts of Liverpool, parts of London and Glasgow. People risk being left with no money at Christmas.
That's right.
If the Prime Minister won't halt...
I just want to point out a minor... something that had occurred to me, actually. These people are already on a system of benefits. Do they then have to, and I don't know this, do they have to then switch their benefit claim and make a new claim to universal credit, or are they already on the system and therefore benefits would simply change from one system to the other, therefore the waiting time not needing to exist? I didn't think about this before the stream, and it has just occurred to me.
The Prime Minister won't halt the rollout of universal credit. Will she at least immediately end the 5-week wait?
Exactly.
Prime Minister.
He is right, it does need to end. You can get an advance. Yeah, but an advance, isn't that just a loan? Which is actually the point I think that Theresa May makes. I don't think that's... because then you've got to pay that back. And so you're in that constant state of having to pay back a loan. I don't know if it can be done. I don't know if it's done gradually over a period of time as opposed to a one lump sum thing. So I do. By the way, I did know about the loans because I actually. Oh, do I have it here? Do I have it? Where is it? Oh yes. How is it paid? So I was actually earlier on the Universal Credit page, and I was looking at advance payments here for advances, which I think is quite interesting. But of course, this is the part that I think is important to recognise, that it's not something that's taken immediately. Now I know for sure. It is a loan, but it's not. I have no idea how many cryptocurrencies there are. I know that I have quite a lot of tokens on mines, and I just don't use them. Yeah. Let's continue though, because I don't want to prattle on about this for too long.
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman that he doesn't quite seem to understand how the system actually operates? No one...
The Nintendo 64 is bae.
No one has to wait for money if they need it. We've made advances. We scrapped.
Lord, we're less than a third of the way through, and already there's too much noise on both sides of the House. Members must calm themselves. The questions will be heard, however long it takes, and the same is true of the replies. Please try to get used to that. The
Lol, after all these years, no.
Prime Minister.
No one needs to wait for their money if they need it. We have made it easier for people to get advances. We've ensured they can get 100% of their first month's payment up front. And we've already...
I know the argument that will be brought forward. Obviously, it is a loan and paid back over time. The obvious argument and counter, the natural one, in fact, would be, yes, but now that person is not going to be getting as much in the future because you're taking money off what they would receive and live hand to mouth on. That's the argument. I would argue that's circumstance-based, so perhaps not for all. Hashtag not all.
Scrapped.
Hello /dash. That was timed. Damn. Thank you.
The 7-day waiting period. And as I repeat, what happened when we scrapped the 7-day waiting period? Labour voted against it.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, it's a loan that's offered for some people. And the Trussell Trust...
He says some, Theresa May said all. I did look this up. It is all people are entitled to it. Alright. Well, that's good to know. Thank you, Princess Crazy Lock, for explaining that. And thank you again, /dash, for the super chat. It's very kind of you.
Trust has pointed out that food banks... The Trussell Trust has also pointed out...
This is going to raise a rather interesting question about politicians' involvement in things. And it made me chuckle, because I'm kind of torn on it.
That food banks face record demand this December. I just gently say to her and the members behind her, food banks are not just a photo opportunity for Conservative MPs.
Right. This is a rather interesting one because this raises... Where is it? I have the sources. Give me the sources. Trussell Trust. Here we go. Right, let's open that. Here we go. Dominic Raab, former Brexit secretary, doing his bit, helping out, collecting food at a food bank in his constituency. Now, yes, a photo was taken, and yes, a number of Tory policies could be argued that encourage this, but was this, and should it be used as an argument, was this a glorified photo opportunity by the MP? Well, based on what I found out, he was actually there for quite a long time helping out. He's not wearing anything that would indicate he's a politician. I mean, in the sense, there's no ID badge, he's not wearing a suit. The guy's casually dressed. I would argue that I would take it in good faith that he was actually there to help. So I'm not convinced, in this case, that it's a political move by Dominic Raab, somebody who resigned from his post because he couldn't agree with Brexit, or the deal anyway. But I'd love to know what you guys think about this one, because I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't see this as a political move that scores him any points, especially when you consider how unpopular the Tories are when it comes to lower income people. And I'd like to point out, if he was a true Tory, he wouldn't be in a Tesco. He'd be doing this in a Waitrose. And that box here, yeah, that box, that would be a Moses basket with peacock food. Yeah, it's oh, hang on, I did have more. There was more on this. Other complaints. Someone here, Dormouse, wrote, I was very disappointed that the Trussell Trust enabled Tory MPs to use citizens' need to use food banks as a photo and PR opportunity. Ah, you lost my support, dickhead. We're done with you. Piss off. There we go. Let's continue.
Who themselves, all of whom supported the cuts in benefit that...
Which had to happen. The benefits that were introduced and had existed for a long time were so high and so big, how the fuck do you pay for that? The benefits, the welfare bill was astronomical. It had to come down. People on benefits that are able to work, and I mean specifically, wait, does it echo? There shouldn't be. I'm wearing earphones. And also I don't have Stream.me open. Oh wait, is it an echo on your end? Oh, that confused me for a second. But yeah, back to the benefits thing. It shouldn't be a case that those that are capable of working and aren't in work should be able to live better than those that work. And I mean, and I know there will always be people who work that are less than someone benefits, in the sense that, don't troll me, Davey. There are going to be people who work that are on lower incomes. I get that. I do. And those people generally just don't care enough to complain about it because they work. They don't care. But there are those who are capable of living the rest of their lives on benefits because they're able to abuse the system, and were, in the past, to rather large sums of money, which I never found to be... to me, that... that entitlement bugged me so much. Let's close some of these tabs before I continue. All of this, by the way, are linked below. It is all quite fascinating.
That have led to the poverty in this country.
Leo Wolffish, there is a link on my main channel, but I think also Streamlabs does it through PayPal. I think. Yeah, so PayPal does, Streamlabs does PayPal, I believe. So feel free if you want to. I'm not going to force that. Let's continue.
Yesterday, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation research found, and I quote, in-work poverty was rising faster than the overall employment rate due to chronic low pay and insecure work.
Yeah, yeah, they're right. Gotta say, that is actually one of the employment thing. Insecure work has been something that has been a problem for a long time. 0-hour contracts, I've been on one before. It was absolute hell. You didn't know. You have more stress from not knowing if you had another day's work, and that to me was scary, I have to admit. And the fact they still exist. Although I will say workers' rights have improved over the years since I was last since I was last Sweetie Squad. Fucking hell. Since I was last unemployed, full-time employed, that is. So it's a bit different now, but there are still more people in those positions than there were when I was doing it.
The United Kingdom has the weakest wage growth of all G20 nations. Living standards...
Hey Magog, how you doing, buddy? Hope you're well. I saw your video. Very funny. We do have the weakest... okay, so there are two ways of tackling this. We can take the Prime Minister's position, which is that over the last 10 years, wage growth has gone through the roof. It's doing really well. It's like 3.5%. Yeah, no. If we take into account inflation, it's actually only 1%. So Corbyn is right here. And the Prime Minister's going to try and fob it off as, no, you're wrong. Well, actually, she's wrong.
...have fallen for the majority of people. What is so wrong with our economy that our pay growth...
Saint of Bacon, 0-hour contracts are... They are, certainly for agency workers, people who don't have rights, essentially. You don't have any kind of... you don't have the employment rights that benefits that others get for being full-time. 1 second. I'm not gonna to address the Dominic Grieve question. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow with Trups, along with the Attorney General's legal advice. I'm going to save it for then on purpose because I don't want to bore people with Brexit and the amendments, because it's all quite fascinating. But the poverty thing, I think, is better for today.
growth is so much worse than each of the other nations in the G20?
Prime Minister.
As much of a big point as this is, in Corbyn's eyes, our wage growth is still growing. We are still one of the biggest countries in the G20. So is this as much of a point just because things haven't grown as much because of all the mess we've had to clean up? People seem to completely ignore that, and it's a continued. It's a repeated point I have to bring up every damn time. Why did we have to do what is austerity? Why did we have to introduce it? Oh, and Magog. Brexit, Magog. It's taken us so long because every person you see in this picture here, yeah, and all around you virtually, would vote Remain, and therefore they don't know how to. Okay, ignoring the really sullen guy here, because that's the sergeant at arms, and he doesn't count. He's like head of security in the entire bloody building. Don't fuck with him. He has a sword. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and Magog, where's our collaboration, you fuck? If you hold on too long, I'll have to resubmit it to you with new avatar update stuff for next year.
Right, honourable gentlemen, that we now see wages growing faster than they have for nearly a decade.
Lie.
We see employment at record levels. But
yes, but unemployment, it's not actually as big as she says. Because yes, more people are in work, but that hasn't taken into account when she says it. You do. It doesn't take into account the fact that the population has grown, which is where one of the discrepancies arises in what she says about record employment. It means jack shit in the grand scheme of things.
what the right honourable gentleman wants to do, he talks about scrapping universal credit. What he wants to do is to go back to square one. That means going back to a system that left 1.4 million people spending most of a decade trapped on benefits.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and I'd never like to experience that ever again in my life. Which is why I'm very happy doing what I do, because I'm in control. One must avoid the YouTube dramas at all costs to protect Ted Brand.
It left people paying an effective tax rate of 90%. And
to pay the bills of those and all the wages, benefits and the debt interest. It was okay, so the economic crash, most will agree, was caused by RBS. The government's solution, because the bank needed so much money to stimulate growth, was to do something called quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is where you print off money that you don't have. You just print it in the vain hope, never go full Warski. I swear if I see BitMetal call me Geek Cthulhu again, I'm going to block him on more platforms. I think I blocked him on Twitter just for a laugh, because I can't be fucked with that shit. And I won't go full Tonka. I mean, I box, but that's about it. I'm not going to fight people. I'd kill them. But with the quantitative easing, it never worked. It was never going to work. In fact, all it did was encourage more people to take their money and put it under their mattress next to the peas. Yeah.
And it cost every household an extra £3,000 a year. As ever
Which was confirmed as, yes, true, it did.
with Labour, it was ordinary working people who paid the price.
And much like when it comes to clearing up the mess of Labour, it's ordinary people that have paid. Us poor working class oiks haven't had it easy for the last 8 years. Actually, we haven't had it easy for a long time, those that actually like to work, that is. Oh, I'm not going to go down that path. Nico.
Mr. Speaker, the chief economist of the Bank of England described...
Mark Carney, he used a different title. It's the governor. It's Mark Carney. Oh, and thank you, Leo Wolfish. So what's the subject did you take at uni? I studied chemistry. Organic chemistry, to be more precise. I think I quite enjoyed spectroscopy.
the last decade as a lost decade for wages.
He did, but he also did recently get into a lot of shit with the old Bank of England chief. Who was it? Where is it? Oh yeah, Mervyn King over the Brexit analysis. Now, Mark Carney, in a select committee, he spent hours defending his Brexit analysis, but much like any analysis we've seen, it was, and I will link it below, the highest grade scaremongery. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, it is cringe beyond belief. I get that you need to present sometimes the extreme good and extreme bad, but his analysis was extreme bad only bad. You're lucky I like you, Magog, because I might have someone time you out for hate speech. I'm kidding, I won't do that. Don't time him out. But the point is, Mark Carney, and I've got a video for this. Here we go. Mark Carney defending the Brexit analysis.
The flows and the various relationships that are there. And then just one other point, if I could, in terms of just to go to process, which is, we had a core team of 20 senior economists who've been working on this.
Even though majority of economists said that Brexit would fuck our economy if we voted leave, and then we actually stabilised straight after.
A couple of years.
Clearly they know shit.
And then draw in other professionals from across the bank.
Appeal to authority.
Almost 150 professionals from across the bank that have been working on it. And 2 senior committees, the MPC and the FPC, have reviewed the work.
Did he say NPC?
This is not something...
Doesn't matter.
There was no exam crisis. We didn't just stay up all night and...
Doesn't matter. He's defended the analysis. Further down, Mervyn King slew him with... He pointed out, I'll have to switch back here for a second. I have another article and he's going to grab it. Where is it? Oh yes, so one of the major bones of contention Mervyn King had with Mark Carney is that he himself has dragged the Bank of England into Brexit, which they did during the campaign as well. Hey, we did. And I think we might still have some Spitfires in a garage somewhere. Just saying. It's quite exciting stuff. Where was it? Oh yeah, so Mark Carney also... where was it? Mervyn King said, I quote, "Trade and contacts among the nations of Europe can and should continue much as before. The EU failed to recognise that the euro would demand fiscal and political integration if it was to succeed, and that countries outside the euro area would require a different kind of EU membership. It was inevitable, therefore, that sooner or later Britain would decide to withdraw from a political project in which it had little interest apart from the shared desire for free trade." Key point there. He's absolutely right. The only reason we care for the EU is the trade element. Past that, the rest can fuck right off. We need to resurrect Churchill. I think, as popular as Churchill is in history, people forget that after World War II, he was voted out of office the very next year. Which I often find to be quite a amusing little factoid.
And... well, the Prime Minister might laugh at this. It's the reality of people's lives. It's the reality...
Order. I appeal to members making too much noise to stop doing so. And order! And I say very gently to the junior minister on the back bench, who is making far too much noise, but he's ordinarily a good-natured and genial chap. I'm referring to the honourable gentleman, the member for Hexham. You can do... Mr. Opperman, you can do... Order!
So I'm glad I didn't take up the deal for the order bit. I've got a new bottle of moonshine next to me. I would be a bit woozy right now.
You can do so much better. Try to be a well-behaved citizen today.
I'm sorry you didn't get a notification, Joy. That sucks. But apparently that's a thing for most people. So hello, Joy. Yeah. Edward Longshanks.
Well, possibly like some others, but there are quite a lot of badly behaved people. Try to set a better example, Mr. Opperman. You're a minister of the Crown. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 years ago, a United Nations committee found this government's policies towards disabled people represented a grave and systematic violation of their rights. Does the Prime Minister think that situation has improved in the past 2 years?
By the way, I've seen that report. Yeah, it pretty much fucked her.
Minister.
Say to the right honourable gentleman, first of all, in answer to the latter point that he's made, it's this government that has a key commitment in relation to helping disabled people getting to the workplace. There are too many.
That's actually a rather interesting point. Is it helping if they are looking for any excuse to just get someone in the workplace? And just because you said someone's eligible doesn't mean you've helped them get into the workplace. It just means you've found a loophole to get them to be eligible. Because helping get them into the workplace is a job centre thing, and they don't have a good track record. The speaker does have quite a potent voice. You should hear the voice of the previous speaker. I might quickly go and find a video of him trying to maintain order, because it's fucking hilarious. YouTube, right. Loses control. That'll work. UK. That's Burko. Who's the Oh no, that's a brutal speaker as well. No, we're not going to go with him. Oh god, no, not him. There are some quality speakers in the past, and they've been absolute monsters. Okay, Speaker of the House of Commons. Who was the guy before Burko? Who was it? Predecessor. Michael Martin. That's it. Right. This is fucking brilliant.
To reading out.
No.
It's now. Let me chair the proceedings.
No. This isn't good enough. Ah, dear. Michael Martin, speaker. There's one where he just says order for like 5 minutes, and it's fucking hilarious. I can't find it. Never mind. We'll carry on with this because I will find it. It's really funny. He just says order about 100 times. I'm not a boomer, rubbishy. Not a boomer.
Disabled people who have felt that they have not been able to do what they want to do, of actually getting into the workplace, earning an income for themselves and their families, and it's this government that is helping. And the former Secretary of State for...
That's actually another interesting point about getting more people into the workplace, those that are disabled. Do you mollycoddle them and treat them like a victim, and is that how you perceive them to be when you want to try and protect them? And by doing so, are you then white knighting people you perceive to be a victim or not? And then, of course, you have to consider the Conservatives' potentially, and in some instances, callous approach to getting more people into the workplace, those of whom are disabled. Traitor May. I like Theresa Dismay. I wrote it in a live stream chat yesterday to describe her and her deal. I didn't forget Betty Boothroyd because she's still alive. But there was a speaker before her, and that guy was ruthless. There's an Irish guy as well in current Parliament. He was might be Nigel Evans. No, not him. Maybe. I don't know who he is, but he is potent as well. Some of them just have. I mean, can you imagine if she was the speaker? She wouldn't be able to get control. She doesn't have the voice for it.
Through the arrangements that she put in place to ensure the disability confident arrangements that she put in place are doing exactly that. But he started off his comments by referencing the last decade. Yes, the last decade have meant that difficult decisions.
I'm sure George VI would have.
Decisions have had to be taken. But why did those difficult decisions have to be taken? They were taken...
Yeah, okay, it's the perfectly faded delusion. That's where the line is. I don't know... Actually, I'd say I don't know where the line is in that regard. And that's where I don't know how to handle that, or how to deal with it. And so I'm kind of conflicted, because I don't know how you address that kind of situation. I do apologise for not being able to give an answer on that, but I just don't know.
They were taken because of the Labour Party's mismanagement of the economy.
Buzzwords.
Remember the letter from the Right Honourable Member for Birmingham Hodge Hill. Under Labour, there is no money left.
Right, this is a running old joke, and I do have it. Where is it? I've got the picture still. Nope. Ah, here we are. Right, this is the letter. Basically, after the Labour Party were voted out, this was a resignation from Liam Byrne. And this is it. I'm afraid there is no money. That is what he wrote. This reinvigorated the Conservative Party and his big shiny forehead. Look at that thing. Big. Let's continue. But yes, that Liam Byrne was the MP in question.
Mr. Speaker, when I hear a Prime Minister talking about difficult decisions, what always happens afterwards in these contexts is the poorest lose out in our society. 4.3 million disabled people are now in poverty. 50,000 were hit by appalling cuts to the employment support allowance benefit alone last year. This government labelled disabled people scroungers.
Not true. It was actually a bunch of councillors in North East England that actually said it in reference to how to tackle those that wanted to be in work and those that were trying not to be in work. Those people were scroungers. There's your context. He's wrong.
It called those unable to work skivers.
I couldn't find a complete quote for where skivers came from, but there was one article, I think. Where is it? No, that's the no money. There is a tweet on benefit scroungers. The skive. Oh yes. Okay. Ian Duncan Smith joined criticism of language that was used by Conservative Campaign HQ and the Chancellor George Osborne at the time, because they put an advert out, and I'm going to show you the advert, because annoyingly I'm going to have to zoom in on this because it's quite small. Oh, fuck it. Here we go. Right. So this, I have to wait till it's on the correct piece. Right, this is it here. Right, it will skip over to another picture and then another picture. This is the skiving remark. That's it. Right, that is the really bad advert that they put out. Right, I say really bad sarcastically because I can't find a video of it because it's not, when you click on it, yeah, error 404, which is unfortunate, but I kind of got why they were putting it out, because they wanted to make it clear those who were dossing, intentionally dossing, that were living off the taxpayer shouldn't get a free ride. And I agree with that sentiment. If you believe those are, and I'm going to make it quite specific, those are not disabled in any way, those are capable of working, have no money, but live on benefits, right, should get a free ride and just be allowed to exist like that. Press 1. If you think they should be made to look for work, get a job, pay their fair share and pay fair way in society, press 2. And if you think taxation is theft, press 3, of course. And if you think Magog is a faggot, press 4.
It created a
Order! Order! I don't need any advice from the Home Secretary. He should seek to discharge his own obligation.
I'm glad you agree, Magog. Really glad you agree.
In his office to the best of his ability. I require no advice from the right honourable gentleman
He's referring to the coconut.
on the discharge of mine. Be clear about that.
Neela, 5.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government also created a hostile environment. Mr. Speaker, this government created a hostile environment for the Windrush generation. When the UN rapporteur said British compassion for those who are suffering has been replaced by a punitive, mean-spirited and callous approach, he couldn't have summed up this contemptible government any better.
The definition of what is and is not callous, I take issue with, because there has to be some firm handling in some areas. How you interpret that as callous, I guess in your case, would be literally anyone not getting every penny that he thinks they're entitled to, which is literally trillions. I'm not even joking. Funding's been removed from most of the charities that help. I did not know that, Uxkin. I am genuinely surprised.
Child poverty is rising. Homelessness
Relative or absolute?
rising. Destitution rising.
Yes, it is.
Household debt rising.
That's circumstance-based, so I'm not going to comment on that.
When will the Prime Minister turn her warm words into action, end the benefit freeze, repeal the bedroom tax, scrap the two-child cap, and halt the rollout of universal credit?
And do what? Halting it is one thing, but then do what? He's off. And this is the annoying thing about being a shadow cabinet, I guess. Opposition, you don't have to offer anything to solve it. You just say, stop doing this because I don't like it. Okay, now what? Should we now make way for your government to spend its way out of trouble?
Prime Minister!
The right honourable gentleman referred to the poorest losing out. I'll tell him when the poorest lose out. It's when a Labour government comes in.
Order! The finger-pointing and yelling and braying must stop. I understand that passions are running highly, but on both sides of the House, we need to have some sense of decorum. The Prime Minister.
It's when a Labour government comes in. What this government has done, we've introduced the national living wage. Conservatives, not Labour. We've taken millions of people out of paying tax altogether. Conservatives, not Labour. Under this government, 3.3 million jobs have been created. Every Labour government.
Oh, one thing in the chat I did see. Isn't the point of opposition in English speaking words to point at the other side and say you're shit cos lols? Exactly.
Leaves office with unemployment higher than when it went into office. So what do we see under this government? Our economy is growing, employment is rising, investment is up. We're giving the NHS the biggest single cash boost in its history. Taxes are being cut, wages are rising. Labour would destroy all that. It's this Conservative government that's building a brighter future for our country.
That is all the questions from the opposition. I could go to the SNP now, but I really don't want to. Essentially, it's
a government in crisis.
Questions given by the Attorney General.
right. Here we go.
This government is giving Northern Ireland permanent membership of the single market in the country.
By the way, that remark is reference to the fact that he thinks that Northern Ireland want that. They don't.
Union. The legal advice is clear. It states, despite statements in the protocol...
I am gonna continue just a little bit on this. Where's your constitution? Our constitution was severed into 7 pieces by Voldemort and used as Horcruxes. So if you can go through his childhood, I'm sure you'll find where we hide it.
That is not intended to be permanent in international...
He's about to create a little bit of controversy, and I think it's fantastic. That's the only reason I'm going to show it.
Law, the protocol would endure indefinitely. Since the Prime Minister returned from Brussels with her deal, the Prime Minister has been misleading the House, inadvertently or otherwise. The Prime Minister must explain...
Okay, so this is the whole... it is unparliamentary to lie or deceive the Commons, the Chamber, or Parliament in any way. He has made an accusation, but he did say inadvertently. Unfortunately, if he hadn't added or otherwise, he would have been okay, because he said inadvertently, because he then didn't question her integrity. However, I am inclined to believe that he's right otherwise, in the sense where he says or otherwise. I think the or otherwise is actually correct. I believe intentionally she has misled Parliament. This government was found in contempt of Parliament. This government's integrity is rock bottom. They have a track record for not providing valuable information when requested, or providing it with enough time for the other parties to dissect it before a debate. There is no doubt this, when voted to give them the information, it is... Yes, Magog, this is the contempt of Parliament thing you would have heard about yesterday. A vote was held in Parliament, and they were voted... it was voted they were in contempt, and that they had to release the legal advice. I personally don't think the legal advice needed to actually be released, because it is exactly that. It's legal advice from essentially a Remainer. That's it. But I'm going to let him say Burko say the one thing I need him to say it. You'll understand. It's just that he's explaining a parliamentary procedure and process. So, and it's very absolute, which I think is quite interesting.
Order. There can be no suggestion of otherwise. The Right Honourable Gentleman must make it clear that there is no suggestion that the government is misleading the House deliberately. There can be no question of that. If the Right Honourable Gentleman wants to use the word inadvertently, which people do now and again, he can, but there must be no ambiguity on the point. And I ask the Right Honourable Gentleman to clarify that matter and to... Order! No, I don't...
Fuck me, I'd be absolutely shit-faced if I'd agreed to do shots every time he said order.
I don't need any advice from anyone. I know exactly what I'm doing, and the Right Honourable Gentleman must comply. Mr. Ian Blackford.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm not going to continue because he will twice more stand up, the Speaker, in this case, and he will then make it clear he cannot say or otherwise, you know. And I think it gets a bit... shit. Before I finish, I'm going to beg for likes, because I want them. Yes. Also go subscribe to Magog, of course, because... You still make videos, right? I'm kidding. I know you make videos. Tomorrow, around about the same time as today, actually, I'm going to be doing a political recap with Trups, as usual. I will be going through the Attorney General's advice, because it was quite interesting, along with amendments that was tabled by Dominic Grieve. It's quite interesting. I don't know what Trups is going to bring. Probably some bullshit from America, or the colonies, whatever you want to call them. I like the idea of calling them a fancy pet project. That if I could be bothered, I'd steamroll with my steam locomotive. It's a bit like a tractor. It's got big metal wheels. It's quite nice. It's got some good green paint on it. I refuse to orb to any more septics. I assume sub to any more septics. Right. Anyway, thank you all very much for joining me. I'm glad it was not so much Brexit related, minus Ian Blackford's suggestion of otherwise, which I think is fantastic. And have a lovely evening. Good night.